What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to close Halloween month with Left 4 Dead. I had this planned actually quite a long time ago. I knew I wanted to start this month with Silent Hill. I knew I wanted to end this month with Left 4 Dead. What a game. What a phenomenal game. We're here to talk about it, talk a little bit about the history, but this one has roots to my childhood growing up. It even has roots to my wife. I mean, my wife is a massive Left 4 Dead fan, and honestly, when I play this game nowadays, and whenever I play it with her, I just follow her lead. She knows exactly where to go. She knows literally everything that's going to happen. I mean, she's played this game countless times, way more than I have. So I just want to talk about it to celebrate Halloween month. What better way to celebrate it, right, than one of the all-time, I mean, what do you want to say, all-time great shooters, all-time great zombie games, all-time great cooperative games, all-time great game in general. I mean, this really is one of those very, very special games. I guess I'll offset it by saying this. I actually do prefer the second game. I think the second game is just more fleshed out. I think it's just got more to it. But there's always going to be something special to that first game. And, whenever I play this game, I can remember back and say, oh, yeah, I remember this level. I obviously remember these characters. It's actually very easy to get into, and that's another thing I want to talk about in this video. But I have it actually for you. This game courtesy my wife. So, again, Left 4 Dead. We also have Left 4 Dead 2. We have it physically. Now, because of the green screen, of course, it's going to do that. But, man, oh, man, we got the whole thing, got the back. We played it yesterday, so I actually took the disc. I mean, you can see it. Again, the green screen kind of messes with it. And may I just say, I mean, you can see it behind me here, but, like, the cover, just iconic. I think I read that the cover was, like, one of the last things they decided on, like the four-finger kind of thing. So that wasn't, like, early on in it, but one of the relics of Valve, right? Like, when you think of Valve, or at least when I think of Valve, I think to Portal, and I think of Left 4 Dead. Of course, you think to Half-Life and other games, Team Fortress, but for me, it's Left 4 Dead and Portal. And I feel like the world would stop if we ever did get an actual third game. Now, we did get Back 4 Blood. Now, Back 4 Blood, which I didn't know this at the time, I think Back 4 Blood only had 7 of the original members of the Left 4 Dead team, and there was 100+ people that worked on this first game. So, now, in retrospect, thinking back at it, I don't know if I should have been as excited for Back 4 Blood as I actually was. I played that game. I own that game. I do not think that game is very good, and I just don't think it does a good job of capturing Left 4 Dead. Pretty disappointed with that one, but this is where it all started, right? And I kind of do want to start with that kind of accessibility thing, because one of the things you realize upon replaying this game is just how simple it is. Now, simple yet complex, right? Like, the zombies are relentless. You have the different kind of factions, right? Like the boomer and the hunter and the smoker and whatnot. So they throw these challenges at you. There's all of these different difficulties, and things can get very, very rough, right? I'm not saying like it's the most simple game, but it is a simple game to just jump in, right? There's very limited weapons. They start you out kind of with like a base group of weapons, and then probably like towards the end of the first chapter, with any of these campaigns, they give you basically like the semi-automatic version of those. You have those. You got your Molotovs. You got your pipe bombs. You got your pain med. You got your first aid kit. You got 2 weapons, you got your 4 people, and you go from one place to the next. I mean, in that way, the game is highly simplistic, but highly replayable. And I think that goes into the AI, I think what they call the director, which I actually did not know much about that. I mean, I do know that, or I did know growing up that, this is a game that can kind of change on the fly. It can change when there's difficulty, switches, they'll change, but also like the pacing of it can change from one playthrough to the next. I knew that. I just didn't know about this mysterious AI that they actually developed, and I believe they developed 2 different AI, one for like the enemies themselves, and I think they did another one just for like music, to be able to like kind of balance the tension and throw some music at you and then pull it back based off of how you're playing. But the director AI, throws zombies at you. It works on the pacing of the game, and it'll react to how you are playing it, and I did not know that. So I mean, this is an old game, and I mean, I think the way that the AI acts, and I was telling this to my wife when we were playing it together, I was primarily, I guess when I said it to her, I was talking about our own AI. The AI is pretty good. Like, we played it with 2 people, so the other 2 were AI. They were pretty darn solid. I think they had trouble getting into the safe room. That was generally like the hardest part, but they'll heal you when you need healing. They're very good aim. They don't get themselves in too much trouble. Now, we played on normal, so we didn't push it, but I can remember, and the reason I say it's stretches back to my roots. You know, when I was growing up, I've said this story kind of before, I had a PS3, right? That was the first, like, main console that I got when I was, 12, 13, 14. And my friends had the 360. So a lot of, like, the Halos, I played some of them by myself on the original Xbox, but some of the later Halos and Gears of War and things like that, I played through them. Well, Left 4 Dead was another one of those. And again, the highly replayable part, that's how I remember it. I remember going to my friend's house, and we would just play this over and over and over. We'd play it back-to-back weeks. We'd play it over months, and it never felt stale. I think, honestly, primarily because of the zombies. It's just fun to go around and shoot. Now, one thing that I realized is the sound design, I think, is unbelievably good. Now, I don't know if it's been, like, upped because of, like, we're playing it on the 360 here, but we play on the Series X. So, I don't know. I don't care too much about, like, what the Series X does to it. I mean, it's a somewhat pretty game still to this day. It runs pretty well. I feel like I remember it running not so well, so I don't know if, like, the frame rate's been given, like, some boost because of the Series X, but I think, like, the sound design is unbelievable. And I'm not even talking, I think the music is good, but even just the blasts of weapons, like when I'm firing the shotgun and it's slamming a zombie, you feel that impact. I mean, legitimately. And I actually couldn't believe it. That's what I was telling her multiple times. I was like, man, for such an old game, like, the sound is outrageously good. Then you have the sound of the enemies. You have your little banter between, your survivors, which I think is really, really cool. You have, like, the witch cry, which is still to this day, right? I mean, it's, like, let me know in the comments if you guys can relate. Who can relate to the witch cry, right? Because this is something I can remember growing up. This is something I still do to this day. Like, when you hear the crying, you immediately stop. My wife and I immediately stopped. My friends and I 10, 15 years ago immediately stopped, right? Because it's like, all right, that's a dangerous foe. Like, a tank is dangerous, right? A boomer can be dangerous, especially, like, on higher difficulties. These things are dangerous. And, they all have their indicators. That is scary. That is, like, unsettling, where you kind of have to reset. And you have to be like, all right, we're facing off against these, not necessarily mindless zombies, because they're coming from all directions. They come in waves. But, okay, now you hear the witch cry. Now you pause, and you say, all right, flashlights off, and let's start, like, scouting around. Let's try to find out where this witch is. If she's in your way, you're kind of screwed. If she's not in your way, then you're not screwed. So, but it's such a great loop where, like, that thing happens consistently and it never gets old. You never, at least for me, I've played this game dozens of times. My wife has probably played it hundreds of times. You always stop for the witch. You do. And the tank noise and the boomer noise and the hunter and the smoker, like, all of them, you pause for a second and you say, okay, let me look around. Like, let me try to figure stuff out. It's unbelievable. It really is. It's so freaking good. But just the base gameplay loop, like, we talked about the sound, and I think the sound makes a difference because it, like, makes that impact, but, visually it looks pretty good. And then it's just fun to play. Like, I think it's a little bit more sensitive than I would like it to be, but at the same time, it's like, for me, it has its own feel. And so, like, we actually, both of us, messed with our sensitivity in the beginning when we first fired this game up, actually yesterday from when I'm recording this. So we went to the pause menu and did all that stuff. And for me, it still moved too fast. Like, the whole thing moves fast. When you're walking down hallways and when you're turning and stuff, it's very light. And I normally like things pretty heavy. That's generally my, like, first person kind of, style, is I like to, really have to push the analog stick to move the reticle and stuff. But for me, it's always, and I think I've always felt that with this game. But it's also something I recognize every time I play, that you just kind of give it to it. I almost just let it happen because it's got a unique feel that I think you just have to let Left 4 Dead have, right? And then it's just a blast to actually fight. I mean, the levels themselves are really, really good. It's something that I don't know if I can get, like, the full impact of that. I think when I was growing up and younger and stuff, you'd spend a lot of time scouting out stuff. When my wife and I were playing, I mean, we played at, like, a normal speed and stuff, but, we knew exactly where to go. Actually, she knew exactly where to go, so we just kind of went that way. So, we would explore when there was a witch. We would explore when we knew that there would probably be some sort of ammo replenishing, somewhere around the next kind of checkpoint kind of system, right? So it's like, okay, you do that kind of stuff, but we didn't, like, super explore. But, the levels are really cool, and the diversity is really cool, right? So, like, 4 different campaigns, 5 different chapters in them, and, you go to hospitals, and you go to, like, swamps, and, I mean, or tunnels, like, all sorts of different places. That's just really, it just keeps you moving, and it keeps you moving in a organic and like different kind of way where you're always seeing kind of new things. It's the same zombies. I mean, like the hospital one, you'll see them in like nurse attire and stuff. So like they can swap it out kind of like that. But generally you're facing zombies and you're facing kind of like the core 5, of kind of the superpower zombies. But they just find a way to make it so fun that you don't really care that, generally the same thing is happening each time. But again, also the pacing, like they'll have those built-in moments where, okay, defend an area, or okay, call something, and then you have to wait for that thing to happen. Obviously, at the end of all the campaigns, you have to just stand there in an area and you get flooded, right? And I mean, that's something I remember specifically. I think Mercy Hospital, the top of it, and just getting ready for the helicopter and all that stuff. Like I remember that like it was yesterday. I think that's the first campaign as well out of the 4. So that's the one I feel like my friends and I would play the most. It's easily the one when I was playing with my wife that I also kind of knew the most. And then when we were doing the other ones, it's like, oh man, you're gonna have to lead the way because I really, it looks familiar to a degree, but I don't remember it all the way. But just an absolute blast. I really think it's such a well-rounded game from all angles. It's fun, and fun probably is the primary factor. It's very challenging. It's got that strategy, especially, as you ramp up the difficulties. It's got multiple modes. I mean, we only played the campaign stuff for the purposes, of this video, but there were other things. In fact, there, I believe, was the survival addition to it that was added as DLC like a year or two later. So, like, this thing has a lot of meat to it. I think even if it just has the 4 campaigns, like, that is plenty to do. But, it is just a fun, fast-paced shooter that looks good, sounds good, is paced unbelievably well, has that AI that works super, super good, is a great cooperative game. It's really, what we talked about in the beginning. It's a pioneer / just a leader in so many, like the zombie category, the first-person shooting category, the cooperative category, all of those things together category. One of the better 360 games, one of the better, whatever you want to say in terms of like labeling it, it probably comes out on top or close to on top for like every single thing. Very, very special. And then, you get the sequel, and then that was kind of it. And again, while I remember like the circus. I think the circus is in maybe the second one, right? More of like the handheld, like hand-to-hand weapons is the things that I kind of remember from the second game. But I mean, I love these games to death. I think they're super good. It makes me want to try Back 4 Blood again because it's like, was it misunderstood? Did I misunderstand it? Or is it just not very good, at least in my opinions? Okay, now I asked the community over on Podcast Now, tell me your stories. I do this weekly. You have to do the Patreon membership or the channel membership, but the last video of every month, I let everybody go at it. So I asked some people, what are your thoughts? Tell me some stories about Left 4 Dead, and we'll go through some of those stories right now. So Hound122100 says, my favorite maps are No Mercy, Blood Harvest, Dead Air, The Passing, The Parish, Dead Center, and Dark Carnival. Jimmy from PlayStation says, if Valve wants to make money, remaster or port these babies over to current and next-gen consoles, or give us Left 4 Dead 3 on both consoles. Vampire Noblest says the real gameplay only starts on Expert with 4 other players. Soloing normal mode or with 4 players is a tutorial. R. Rice says my favorite co-op game of all time, Left 4 Dead is the GOAT. Keep up the good work, brother. Appreciate it, man. Pop-Up Burkett says I'm going to buy an Xbox, goddammit. Simba Fan 2024, I remember as a kid playing this game a lot. I have a ton of memories with the game. I used to love playing the Versus mode. Used to be a blast. Also, I love Left 4 Dead 2 as well. I love the No Mercy map and the Dead Air map as well. Spurge10 says Left 4 Dead was the go-to co-op game with me and my brother, 12 years older when I was a kid. After losing him back in March, I went back to play these games, and the magic was still there after all these years. I'm terribly sorry about your loss, but you know what? Let me just stop it here because I want to address that. I think that's important. Gaming means a lot to a lot of people, and it can do different things for a lot of people. So like those memories are special, and that's really cool, honestly. That's a really neat thing that games can like kind of have that impact on you. So I'm glad the game was able to give that to you with your brother, and then it's you're able to kind of almost go back in the time machine or take something out of it now because of it. I think that's super, super cool. Exeter FG says this game is one of the greatest co-op games of all time. Holds a special place in my heart because of all the time my friends and I spent playing it. We still play it to this day. However, we usually play the second one. I think the second game is definitely way better than this, but this is where it all started. I think the vibe and atmosphere is actually darker and more serious in this game. Both are fantastic, though, and still hold up incredibly well. It's amazing how all of Valve's games hold up and can't be replicated. I'm still hoping that Valve will learn to count to 3 someday and give us another one of these. LOL, perfect. And then EJ said, I'll check it out as I grew up on Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Love it. I mean, you kind of get the theme there, right? Definitely cooperative is a big thing. I think that's really what it might be what holds this game together, right? Because, I mean, look, like I just said, I spent the whole video saying I think it's a special game kind of regardless, but to one of those earlier comments, right? I think that's true. Like the game ramps up, especially in obviously the difficulty as you ramp up the difficulty, but it almost like takes on a whole new life. And I will say, yeah, playing the game by yourself, like, normally, actually all of these videos that I've done, I do play them by myself. When they're multiplayer videos or multiplayer games, Evil Dead and things like that, obviously I've played them online. When I knew I wanted to cover this and I, put in my calendar and all that stuff, I knew I needed my wife to play it with me, so I asked her to. But, because, yeah, playing this game by yourself, I never have. I got to be real. In all of my time, because I didn't have a 360, growing up. I only got it later. So growing up, I only ever played this with at least one other person, if not more. And then even now, playing it with my wife. So I've never had any moment where I wanted to play it by myself. And I do think the AI is pretty okay. The AI of the companions. I think the AI of the zombies are better, but I do think the AI companions are actually pretty solid. But yeah, it is something that I never really wanted to do that. And then even to Exeter's comment, I agree. I mean, Left 4 Dead 2 is my preferred one. And I was thinking almost that exact same thing because, like I said earlier, like I think of a lot of the more hand-to-hand weapons when it comes to Left 4 Dead 2. Thinking about it right now, I haven't played in a while, so this could be wrong, but I do think of it as lighter. I think about it, not even just tone. Like, actually, when I see it, I just see, like, brighter things, like more colors, more pop. And I would say my thought, too, is, yeah, this game actually is the darker and more serious one of the two, if I had to pick one. Now, again, that's without playing the second game in a long time, but it's the same thing. Like Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, I would play continuously with my friends, so I have a little bit of a memory with it, but those are good points. But yeah, I mean, the co-op thing, I think, is something very, very special. I think it's something a lot of people can relate to, especially the era. See, like nowadays, I don't know, because everything is online, not to make it about that, right? But, this is a more retrospective, preservationist type channel. Nowadays, you don't really have as many of these games. Like, for this experience to hit, right, you got to put yourself back in the late 2000s. And, like, in order to do that, you primarily were playing this probably at friends' houses. Like, yeah, Xbox Live is getting going and all that stuff. And, yeah, you can play some of these games, online and whatnot. But, I think a lot of us, specifically with this game, and specifically that 2006 to maybe 2011, 12, 13, that era, so many of those cooperative games, you sat on the couch and you had friends and you remember playing with them and you have that kind of bond, like the comment with his brother, right? Like that's something that I think a lot of people, either with friends or siblings, that's what a lot of us had to do in order to make these games anything, right? Like if you like this game, if you have an experience with this game, chances are you probably did play it co-op growing up, or even maybe to this day, right? And you just don't have, like, you almost have to completely change up your setup. I know I do. Like I said, like, we have to get my wife, and then I have to, like, sit down and we're both playing. It's like, we don't do that anymore. What I mean? It's just not a thing that happens because of how the industry is and how games are. We play games like It Takes Two and things like A Way Out and stuff, but, for the most part, a lot of these games don't do split screen. They don't do couch co-op. So it's almost like not only is this going into a time machine, but it's just something you don't do anymore, like, period. Like, you almost have to completely do something completely different, right, in order to play a game like this. And in a way, that actually makes it very, very special because you are stepping into a time machine, but you're doing something that's very against the norm of, like, current day. So enough of that ranting. Love this game. Really do. We'll see. Maybe next year for Halloween month part 3, we can do Left 4 Dead 2. You guys let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, not just this video, but all of the videos. I hope you had fun this Halloween month. I certainly had fun. And again, maybe let me know horror games. Maybe we'll do some polling and asking you guys what horror games you want to see from me next year. I think that would be kind of fun. But let me know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.